Demonic Sound Mountain was situated deep within the 10,000 Beast Mountain range, a perilously steep peak. Covering the mountain were peculiar black trees known as sound trees, which had an unusual trumpet-like function, capable of amplifying sound several times over. At every moment, sharp, piercing sounds echoed from the entire mountain, which led to it being named Demonic Sound Mountain. At the summit of Demonic Sound Mountain, a stone hall stood tall. The stone structure had a dark, reddish hue, resembling the color of congealed blood, giving off a deeply oppressive atmosphere. If one shifted their gaze inside the hall, they would see a throne seemingly constructed from eerie white bones. Sitting atop the bone throne was a middle-aged man with dark golden skin. His eyes were deeply sunken, and his lips curled into a strange shape, casting a sinister and chilling shadow over his entire face. Is the owl sound formation set up? The middle-aged man lifted his cold, sinister gaze towards the two figures in front of him and asked in a detached tone, "Rest assured, my lord, all the human-headed owls have been deployed. If anyone dares intrude, we can activate the owl sound formation at once." One of the two men, dressed in leopard skin, said with a grin, "My lord, is that guy who looks like a woman really so terrifying? We've been hiding in Demonic Sound Mountain for days now." The other, a burly man with a fierce face, grumbled, clearly displeased. That weak-looking guy may appear fragile, but his strength has likely reached the great completion of the life mystique stage. If it came to a fight, even I wouldn't be his match." The middle-aged man snapped coldly. "We should have crippled that big guy when we had the chance. We wouldn't be in this mess now." The leopard skin-clad man's eyes flickered with malice as he spoke. "What do we do now, my lord? Are we going to keep hiding in Demonic Sound Mountain forever?" The burly man asked, frustrated. Leaning back against the throne, the middle-aged man's lips curled into a chilling smile. "Don't worry. I have some connections with the Yuan Sect. I've already sent word to invite one of their elders. Once they arrive, that guy won't be a problem for much longer." Hearing this, the two men secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Just as they were about to speak, a sharp, urgent shriek echoed from outside the hall. The three inside instantly tensed up, and the middle-aged man leaped to his feet, his figure flickering as he dashed out of the hall. His sinister gaze fixed on the sky beyond the mountain peak, where four figures hovered in midair. "You again, persistent as a ghost." The middle-aged man's voice dripped with malice as he glared at one of the four, a handsome man. Swish, swish. At that moment, the entire mountain was stirred, with the sound of rushing wind filling the air. Soon, numerous figures emerged, gathering on the summit, their eyes full of vigilance as they locked onto the four in the sky. Quite the spectacle. Lin Dong glanced at Demonic Sound Mountain, sweeping his gaze over it. He could sense countless strange waves of energy emanating from within the mountain. These waves were subtle, but faintly carried piercing sound vibrations. They were likely the human-headed owls that little Mink had mentioned. "You hurt my brother. Do you think I'll just let that slide? Golden Ghost Owl, why don't you kill those two lackeys of yours, and I'll let it go? How about that?" Little Mink said with a sly smile, a cold and crafty glint in his eyes. Hearing Little Mink's words, the two men standing behind the Golden Ghost Owl visibly stiffened. Though they tried to keep their expressions neutral, they couldn't help but glance nervously at the back of the Golden Ghost Owl. "You really think I'm that stupid?" The Golden Ghost Owl's gaze turned cold as he sneered. "Well, I do think you're pretty dumb," Little Mink replied with a grin, his tone as infuriating as ever. "Talking tough again. Let's see you break through my owl sound formation first, before you run your mouth. Don't go running away with your tail between your legs like last time." The Golden Ghost Owl's eyes gleamed with malice, though he knew he couldn't match Little Mink in a head-on fight. With a fierce wave of his hand, the black trees on the mountain began to sway violently. Soon after, a swarm of grotesque, pitch-black creatures with human-like heads crawled out from the trees. Their sheer numbers blanketed the mountain, an absolutely terrifying sight. Whoa! The moment the human-headed owls appeared, they stuck their heads into the sound trees. Immediately, shrill wails filled the sky, reverberating across the mountain. Buzz, buzz. Countless black sound waves spread out from demonic Sound Mountain, forming a vast web of sound that enveloped the entire peak. The black sound waves slithered through the air like enormous black serpents. Though they appeared calm, Lin Dong and the others could feel the immense destructive power contained within them. A single human-headed owl might not be much, but with 100,000 gathered, their combined force was horrifying. Seeing the massive black soundwave web, even little Mink's eyes narrowed slightly. He gestured for his companions to step back a little. "So that's your big trick? Still showing up just to make a fool of yourself?" The golden ghost owl laughed mockingly as he saw little Mink retreat. His subordinates joined in, laughing uproariously. But as they laughed, a girl stepped forward from Lin Dong's group. She cradled a fiery red zither in her arms. The girl was dressed in a pale white robe, her face delicate and beautiful, with clear, bright eyes that shimmered like a lake. Her long black ponytail fell gracefully over her chest. Her pure, innocent appearance momentarily stunned the hardened men of demonic Sound Mountain, most of whom were cruel and ruthless, their hands stained with blood. The sight of such a fresh, vibrant girl stirred something foul in their eyes, and soon, obscene whistles and vulgar words echoed across the mountain. "Haha, sending such a pretty little girl. Did you really think we'd show mercy? Heh, maybe she's here to serve the Lord. Are they delivering women to us?" Lin Dong's face darkened at the obscene remarks, a strong killing intent flashing through his eyes. His gaze swept over the mountain, silently memorizing the faces of the most obnoxious offenders. Thrum. In stark contrast to Lin Dong's icy expression, Huanhuan's face remained calm and serene. She floated cross-legged in midair, her fiery red zither resting gently in her lap. Her flawless jade hands descended, and in an instant, the clear and piercing cry of a phoenix rang out through the heavens. Clang! The moment the melodic cry sounded, all the obscene remarks from demonic Sound Mountain fell silent. Even the golden ghost owl's face changed drastically, a sudden sense of unease creeping up on him. The phoenix's call echoed across the sky, followed by an eruption of fiery red light, as if a volcano had burst forth from within Huanhuan. The heavenly phoenix Zither in her lap released a brilliant crimson phoenix that soared into the sky, circling above her. At the same time, a terrifying power emanated from the red phoenix. A pure primordial treasure. The golden ghost owl on demonic Sound Mountain stared at the crimson phoenix circling above, his pupils contracting in terror as he involuntarily cried out in shock. "You got it right, but there's no prize for that," Huanhuan said with a slight smile, her gaze lifting toward the horrified golden ghost owl. Her delicate fingers then swiftly strummed across the strings of her zither. Clang! The crimson phoenix soaring in the sky let out a long, clear cry, and with a powerful flap of its massive wings, waves of bright red sound erupted into the air. As the phoenix cries rippled out, they merged with the music resonating from the heavenly phoenix zither, transforming into a fiery wave that roared directly towards the owl sound formation enveloping demonic Sound Mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The fiery sound waves swept across the sky, crashing heavily into the formation made up of 100,000 human-headed owls. Lin Dong and the others watched as the black sound waves, like enormous black pythons, instantly disintegrated upon impact, vanishing into nothingness amid the surging flames. The sound wave formation that even little Mink had struggled to deal with shattered in an instant. As the formation collapsed, the countless human-headed owls that filled the mountain trembled violently as if they had encountered their nemesis. With a loud explosion, they all burst into clouds of blood mist. On demonic Sound Mountain, the previously arrogant and boastful golden ghost owl and his men paled as they watched the human-headed owls explode into blood mist across the entire mountain. As expected of a pure primordial treasure, Lin Dong muttered in amazement as he witnessed the scene. The power of the treasure was truly terrifying. While there was an element of natural counteraction at play, Lin Dong knew that if he were to face Huanhuan with the heavenly phoenix Zither, the outcome would be hard to predict. "Now it's your turn." Huanhuan turned her head, her previously calm and delicate face now slightly pale from the exertion of wielding the Zither. A frosty air emanated from her as she bit her lip and said coldly, "Lin Dong, if you don't kill all those people who insulted me just now, I'll go home and tell my father and sister that you bullied me." Lin Dong was instantly left speechless. "Let's get started." Little Mink's cold laughter rang in Lin Dong's ears as he stood there in stunned silence. Then, a vast and overwhelming energy surged from Little Mink's body, spreading out like storm clouds, filling the heavens with oppressive might. "Now you'll pay for mocking Lord Mink." As the powerful aura radiated from him, Little Mink's handsome face took on a bloodthirsty gleam. It was clear that the time spent trapped by demonic Sound Mountain's formation had pushed him to the edge. Now that the formation was broken, his pent-up fury was unleashed in full force. Whoosh! A torrent of purple-black light erupted from Little Mink's palm, and with a single swipe, several unlucky individuals were instantly reduced to a bloody pulp. His eyes, glowing with purple-black light, then locked onto the golden ghost owl, whose face had grown even more grim. "You yellow-haired freak, let's see where you hide this time." Little Mink sneered menacingly, his figure flickering as he appeared like a specter before the golden ghost owl. A streak of purple-black energy, filled with terrifying power, shot towards him like lightning. Faced with Little Mink's ferocious attack, the golden ghost owl hastily retreated in panic. He was no match for Little Mink in a one-on-one fight, given the vast difference in their strength. With the owl sound formation now destroyed, he had nowhere to hide and could only fight back, desperately hoping that reinforcements from the Yuan Sect would arrive soon. Roar! As Little Mink struck, Little Yin let out a furious roar. His already towering figure doubled in size, his body radiating a crimson glow, clearly the result of a powerful body-strengthening technique. Boom! With his body enlarged, Little Yin stamped his foot, launching himself towards demonic Sound Mountain like a cannonball. His blood-red eyes and ferocious expression made him look nothing like the gentle giant from before. "Be careful," Lin Dong said to Huanhuan as he saw the others already engaged in battle. With that, he wasted no time, summoning the azure dragon wings behind him, transforming into a streak of azure light as he charged up the mountain. Swish! Lin Dong moved like a shadow across the peak. One arm transformed into a dragon's limb. Gripping one of the black trees, he swung it ruthlessly as he tore through the mountain, targeting the faces of those who had previously insulted Huanhuan. Each one of them was smashed into a bloody mess, their screams echoing through the air. The forces of demonic Sound Mountain were, overall, only formidable at the top levels. Apart from the golden ghost owl and his two lieutenants, the rest were of little consequence. So when Lin Dong and the others charged like ferocious wolves, those seemingly fierce warriors fled faster than rabbits, the entire scene turning into a full-on rout. Lin Dong swung the tree again, sending another foul-mouthed individual flying, blood spurting from his mouth. Just as he was about to take another step, his eyes narrowed, and his other arm instantly transformed into the azure dragon arm. Clenching his fist, he swung it behind him. Bang! Two powerful fists collided, sending visible shockwaves through the air, shaking the ground and turning the fallen leaves to dust. As the shockwaves spread, Lin Dong's body trembled slightly, and he took half a step back. His opponent, on the other hand, was forced to retreat several steps before finally dispersing the invading energy within his body. Lin Dong looked up to see a burly man dressed in leopard skin clothing. A deep scar ran across the man's forehead, giving him a savage appearance. The aura radiating from his body caught Lin Dong's attention. It seemed he had reached the 9th Nirvana stage. However, compared to Wang Yin, he was noticeably weaker. "Killed so many of my men, you bastard. Today, Leopard Lord is going to twist your head off and use it as a piss pot." The leopard skin man snarled savagely at Lin Dong. A hollow 9th Nirvana stage. Lin Dong smiled and shook his head at the man. Though he had reached the 9th Nirvana stage, their earlier clash made Lin Dong feel he was even weaker than Yao Ling, let alone Wang Yin. "Tough talk, kid. I'll tear you apart," the leopard skin man roared, wasting no more words. Vast amounts of energy surged from his body as he launched himself at Lin Dong. Swish! The man's fierce strike grazed Lin Dong's face, But before he could follow up, Lin Dong's Azure Dragon arm locked onto his wrist. Is this weak power all you've got? Lin Dong smiled faintly, his eyes suddenly turning cold. An overwhelming force surged from his body like a flood, and with a violent yank, he threw the man off balance. A swift kick followed, landing squarely on the man's chest. Boom! To the shock of the surrounding warriors of demonic Sound Mountain, the leopard skin man was sent flying hundreds of meters by Lin Dong's kick, crashing through trees and reducing them to splinters along the way. Having fought formidable 9th Nirvana stage opponents like Yao Ling and Wang Yin, Lin Dong couldn't help but feel that this leopard skin man was laughably weak in comparison. It made him wonder how this guy had even managed to reach his level in cultivation. In the distance, the leopard skin-clad man struggled to his feet, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes turning blood-red with rage. He let out a roar towards the sky, his body convulsing and morphing until he transformed into a massive golden leopard. With a gust of wind filled with the scent of blood, he ferociously charged at Lin Dong. Lin Dong remained calm as he watched the golden leopard pounce towards him. He showed no intention of retreating, his arms transforming into dragon limbs. He grabbed the black tree beside him and swung it with immense force. Boom, boom, boom. The warriors of demonic Sound Mountain looked on in shock as the golden leopard battled fiercely with Lin Dong, but was continually forced to retreat. It could gain no advantage despite its wild attacks. Their gazes shifted to two other battle zones on the mountain, where both the Golden Ghost Owl and another general were also being pressed into a desperate situation. Things weren't looking good. Several members of demonic Sound Mountain exchanged glances, and some began to quietly flee. As the saying goes, when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Given the current situation, it was clear that demonic Sound Mountain couldn't be saved. The entire mountain was plunged into chaos, with thunderous crashes reverberating continuously. It felt as though the whole peak might collapse at any moment. The thick scent of blood filled the air, rising to the heavens. As demonic Sound Mountain descended into disorder, three figures appeared on a distant peak, their indifferent gazes fixed on the scene. Well, it looks like demonic Sound Mountain has been breached. That beast really is useless. It couldn't even hold out for this long. One of the three, a handsome man dressed in white, spoke with a mocking smile as he looked at the blood-drenched mountain. Uncle Jiang, should we step in and help? A black-clad man beside him asked with a sly grin. Let more of them die first, the elderly man in brown robes standing before them said calmly. Demonic Sound Mountain hides Earth Core Spirit Nectar. That fool thought no one knew about it and invited me here. Since I'm here, I might as well take the treasure. Such heavenly treasures should be safeguarded by the Yuan Sect. Xiaoyan, go quietly deal with those fleeing from demonic Sound Mountain. Don't let any word of this get out. Don't worry, Uncle Jiang. Not a single one will escape. The black-clad man responded with a grin before his figure disappeared into the forest as a streak of light. Shen Yun, go seize the Zither from that girl. Haha, I didn't expect to see a pure primordial treasure here. It seems even the heavens are favoring our Yuan Sect, the elderly man said with a faint smile, pointing toward Huanhuan, who was stationed just outside demonic Sound Mountain. Yes, the white-clad man, Shen Yun, replied with a smile. His gaze flickered with interest as he looked into the distance. He chuckled lightly and said, and such a beauty too. Leave her to me. As soon as Shen Yun's voice trailed off, his figure vanished mysteriously. After the two had disappeared, the brown-robed elder turned his gaze to the peak of demonic Sound Mountain, where Little Mink and the Golden Ghost Owl were engaged in a fierce battle. So, he's also at the great completion of the Life Mystique stage. Heh, it might be a bit troublesome to deal with him. Outside demonic Sound Mountain, Huanhuan watched the chaotic peak, her slender hands resting lightly on the strings of the heavenly phoenix Zither. She was ready to provide support if the situation took a turn for the worse. Although activating the heavenly phoenix Zither consumed an immense amount of her strength, this wasn't the time to worry about such things. Huanhuan quietly observed the mountain, but soon realized that her assistance might not be necessary. Lin Dong and his companions had already turned demonic Sound Mountain upside down and were dominating their respective battles. Sigh. Seeing this, Huanhuan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, just as she was about to lift her fingers from the zither, her gaze sharpened, and she spun around. Behind her stood a handsome man dressed in white, smiling faintly. "Who are you?" Huanhuan asked coldly, her eyes filled with vigilance. "There's no need to be afraid, young lady. I am Shen Yun of the Yuan Sect, one of the 8 spirit generals," the man in white said with a smile. "The Yuan Sect?" Upon hearing those 2 words, Huanhuan's face turned utterly cold, and she sneered. "So, you're a dog of the Yuan Sect. I don't have time to waste with you. Get lost." "Haha, little beauty, that's not a very nice way to talk," Shen Yun replied, momentarily taken aback by Huanhuan's sudden change in demeanor. Then, his brow furrowed, and a playful smile appeared on his lips as he flickered like a ghost, swiftly closing in on Huanhuan and reaching out to lift her chin. Thrum. But just as his hand stretched out, a chilling gleam flashed in Huanhuan's eyes. Her fingers flew across the zither strings, and a crimson wave of sound blasted toward Shen Yun with incredible force. The violent sound wave rushed out, forcing Shen Yun's expression to shift slightly. With a light tap of his toes, he created a mirage of afterimages, which were instantly shredded by the sound wave. Such a fiery little beauty. But that just makes it all the more interesting, doesn't it? Shen Yun reappeared a short distance away, grinning at Huanhuan with an amused look. "This pure primordial treasure is indeed powerful, but I wonder how many more times you can wield it with your current strength. Killing you will be more than enough." Huanhuan's face paled slightly, but she responded with a cold laugh. Her fingers landed on the zither strings once again, and the clear cry of a phoenix echoed through the air. A massive fiery red wing emerged from the zither, carrying a devastating wave of sound as it swept towards Shen Yun. Facing the power of the heavenly phoenix zither, Shen Yun didn't dare be careless. With a clenched hand, a black stone seal materialized and shot out like a black streak of light, clashing with the fiery wing. Boom! A deafening sound filled the air as the black streak was blasted backward. But Shen Yun used this brief moment to retreat out of range of the Phoenix Wing's attack. Shen Yun was clearly an extremely cunning opponent. He knew that wielding the pure primordial treasure consumed a tremendous amount of Huanhuan's energy, so he avoided engaging her directly, determined to wear her down until she was exhausted. Unfortunately, his strategy was proving effective. If Huanhuan had been at full strength, she could have held her own against him with the heavenly Phoenix Zither. However, the earlier effort to break demonic Sound Mountain's formation had drained her heavily. Now, she was no longer able to summon the Phoenix from the Zither as she had before. Under Shen Yun's calculated pressure, Huanhuan's energy was rapidly depleting. As her strength waned, her delicate fingers slowed across the Zither strings, and her attacks gradually lost their former sharpness. Shen Yun, with his wealth of battle experience, immediately sensed the change in her rhythm. A cold smile flashed in his eyes as his figure shot forward, charging at Huanhuan with lightning speed. Huanhuan bit her lip as she watched Shen Yun charge toward her again, ready to pluck the Zither strings once more. "Your friend seems to be struggling," Shen Yun's mocking voice suddenly echoed in her ears just as her fingers were about to strike the strings. Her hand froze mid-air, and almost involuntarily, the corner of Huanhuan's eyes flicked toward Lin Dong's location on demonic Sound Mountain. However, she saw no such signs of distress. Her heart sank, realizing she had been momentarily distracted. Before she could move again, Shen Yun's figure was already dangerously close. "Little beauty, you're still too naive." Shen Yun smirked and, without hesitation, unleashed a fierce strike that landed squarely on Huanhuan's delicate shoulder. Two sounds rang out simultaneously. Huanhuan's body was sent flying backward, but as she was propelled through the air, her fingers still managed to strum the Zither strings, releasing a violent sound wave that struck Shen Yun with lightning speed. Shen Yun's figure staggered back, his body surging with powerful energy. However, when he stabilized, his clothes were torn in several places, and a bloody scratch appeared on his chest. Looking down at his disheveled appearance, Shen Yun's face darkened instantly. He raised his gaze toward Huanhuan, whose face had turned pale, and charged toward her again with a roar of energy, unleashing a brutal palm strike. Lin Dong swung his blackened tree with his azure dragon arm, the terrifying force splitting the air as it landed heavily on the charging golden leopard. A deep thud echoed through the forest as the golden leopard was slammed into the ground, massive cracks spreading out from beneath its body. Just as Lin Dong prepared to follow up with another attack, a sudden sense of alarm gripped him. His expression changed sharply as he turned, and saw Huanhuan being flung through the air in the distance. Seeing the frail figure of the young girl falling, Lin Dong's face immediately turned grim. He moved to rush toward her, but a sharp pain shot through his right leg. The golden leopard had viciously sunk its teeth into him. A fierce gleam surged in Lin Dong's eyes as he lost all restraint. His legs glowed with azure light, transforming into dragon claws. He lifted his leg and stomped down with the weight of a mountain, aiming directly at the golden leopard. Boom, boom, boom. A series of deep, thunderous sounds rippled through the forest, and cracks spread across the ground. When Lin Dong's foot finally came down, the ground collapsed by several meters. The golden leopard's head was crushed into a bloody pulp, its blood seeping into the earth, creating a gruesome, dark scene. Swish! Lin Dong crushed the golden leopard, then grabbed its body with one hand. His azure dragon wings spread behind him, and he shot into the sky. Little beauty, just hand over that zither nicely. Shen Yun grinned, extending his hand toward the pale-faced Huanhuan. Huanhuan glared at him with icy eyes, saying nothing. Her fingers moved to the zither strings, but before she could play, she let out a soft groan as a trace of blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. The immense effort of wielding the heavenly phoenix zither earlier had drained her, and now, forcing herself to play again was causing her internal backlash. So stubborn. It looks like I'll have to resort to force, though it's such a shame. Shen Yun chuckled as a black spear materialized in his hand. With a flash of cold light, the spear, brimming with violent energy, shot toward Huanhuan. Clang! Huanhuan raised the heavenly phoenix zither horizontally, using its body to block the spear. However, the immense force from the spear still caused her throat to tighten as a metallic taste filled her mouth. Swish! Shen Yun's grin widened as he made another move. This time, the spear twisted in a tricky arc, aiming straight for Huanhuan's forehead. Bang! But just as the spear thrust forward, a sharp whistling sound filled the air, accompanied by the stench of blood. Shen Yun's expression darkened, and he shifted the spear to intercept the object hurtling toward him, a mutilated golden leopard. Thud! The spear pierced through the bloodied golden leopard, and Shen Yun paused for a moment. The next instant, his pupils shrank as the leopard's body suddenly exploded. A dragon-clawed leg covered in azure scales ripped through the air, surrounded by a spray of blood, striking toward him with blinding speed. Boom! A heavy thud echoed through the sky as Shen Yun was sent flying several hundred meters before finally coming to a stop. A line of blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. Well done, Shen Yun remarked coldly, glaring at the slender figure that had appeared in midair. Lin Dong, be careful. He's one of the 8 spirit generals of the Yuan Sect. Huanhuan, relieved to see Lin Dong, quickly warned him. Lin Dong's gaze turned murderous as he locked eyes with Shen Yun. A twisted grin slowly crept across his face. Don't worry. He'll be dead soon. Such big talk. In all these years, you're the first to dare speak to me like that, Shen Yun said, his mocking smile returning. As one of the 8 spirit generals of the Yuan Sect, his status was unparalleled. Even when he walked outside the sect, others treated him with fear and respect. No one had ever dared to threaten him to his face. Lin Dong's expression remained cold, though the bloodthirsty glint in his eyes intensified. The recent events had left him deeply unsettled. He had already felt uneasy about bringing Huanhuan into battle, and now that she was injured, he dreaded how he would face Xuanzi and Xiaoxiao if anything happened to her. Lin Dong? The one who defeated Yaoling? You're from the Dao sect? Shen Yun's eyes narrowed as he suddenly recalled the name, looking carefully at Lin Dong's slender figure. Heh, no wonder the little beauty has such an attitude. So you're from the Dao sect, a bunch of nobodies. Shen Yun's lips curled into a sneer. You won't be leaving this mountain alive today, Lin Dong said, lifting his head with a grin. Boy, don't think defeating Yao Ling qualifies you to act arrogant in front of me. Your name has been making the rounds in my Yuan Sect, but that's good. I'll take you down, drag you back to the sect, and let my fellow disciples get a good look at you. Shen Yun sneered. Stay back and be careful, Lin Dong told Huanhuan over his shoulder. Huanhuan nodded, but suddenly stiffened. Her gaze shifted toward the distant forest, where the sound of rushing wind could be heard. A figure was rapidly approaching, and within moments, they appeared beside Shen Yun. What's this? You didn't succeed? Who's this guy? The black-clad man who had just appeared scanned Lin Dong and Huanhuan, raising an eyebrow with a smile. He's Lin Dong, the one who defeated Yao Ling. They say he's quite outstanding among this generation of young disciples from the Dao sect, Shen Yun replied. Oh. The black-clad man seemed a bit surprised before chuckling. A disciple of the Dao sect? Huh? How ironic. Even though Yao Ling was expelled from the Yuan sect, it's not your Dao sect's place to deal with him. Lin Dong gazed at the black-clad man before him. The man was tall, and his body carried a faint smell of blood, which caused Lin Dong's eyes to flicker as he glanced around demonic Sound Mountain. It seemed that the people who had fled earlier had all been dealt with. Another one of the 8 spirit generals, huh? The Yuan sect's 8 divisions actually sent out 2 of their top disciples this time. The black-clad man's aura was just as powerful as Shen Yun's, indicating that he was likely on the same level. Another of the 8 spirit generals. 2 ninth Nirvana stage experts, on par with Yao Ling, were not an insignificant force. Even Lin Dong would find dealing with them quite troublesome. Huanhuan clearly understood this as well. When the black-clad man appeared, her initial thought to retreat was halted. She bit her lip and placed her delicate hand on the strings of the heavenly phoenix Zither, a strange, dark red light flickering deep within her bright eyes. Shall we take them down? One for each of us? The black-clad man asked with a smile, eyeing Lin Dong and Huanhuan. Yes. Shen Yun sneered, his gaze fixed on Lin Dong. Leave him to me. I'll show him that no matter how famous he is in the Dao sect, he can't make any waves in front of us. I'll handle the little beauty, then, the black-clad man said with a grin as he charged toward Huanhuan. Xiao Yin. Lin Dong's icy voice rang out. Boom. A loud sound of rushing wind echoed almost simultaneously as a massive boulder was hurled from demonic Sound Mountain, crashing directly toward the black-clad man. Bang! The black-clad man threw a punch, smashing the boulder into pieces with a burst of powerful energy. His expression turned cold as he saw a towering figure, covered in a fierce aura, appear in front of Huanhuan. The figure's blood-red eyes made him shudder. Protect her, Lin Dong said quietly, landing beside Xiao Yin. Don't worry, big brother. No one will hurt her, Xiao Yin grinned, as a terrifying aura erupted from his body. His skin darkened, resembling cast iron, and his massive fists clinked together with the sound of metal. Just a mere demonic beast, and you dare boast in front of the Yuan sect? As soon as Xiao Yin spoke, an elderly voice echoed faintly through the air. Lin Dong and Xiao Yan's expressions shifted as they looked up to see a brown-robed elder slowly emerging from the air, the atmosphere rippling around him. Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed as he focused on the elder, sensing an overwhelming danger. His darkened skin grew even darker, his body tense like a tiger ready to strike. Lin Dong's expression also turned grim. He hadn't expected not only 2 of the 8 spirit generals from the Yuan sect, but also an elder with such a powerful presence. Judging by the elder's aura, he was definitely at the life mystique stage, perhaps even the great completion level. The situation had suddenly turned dire. Where do you think you're showing off, old man? Do you take Lord Mink for a decoration? Just as Lin Dong was contemplating his next move, a thunderous voice boomed from the sky. Dark clouds surged, and little Mink's figure appeared like a ghost in the air above demonic Sound Mountain, his cold eyes fixed on the brown-robed elder. The elder's eyes flickered as he glanced at little Mink. His aged face twitched slightly, clearly sensing the formidable threat little Mink posed. Finally, you're here, Elder Jiang. From behind, The bloodied and disheveled golden ghost owl rose into the air. Seeing the brown-robed elder and his group, his face lit up with joy. He then gritted his teeth and said, "Elder Jiang, that guy is at the great completion of the life mystique stage, just like you. Together, we can kill him." Elder Jiang's eyes narrowed, a dark glint flashing across them, but a smile appeared on his face. "It seems I arrived a bit late, causing demonic Sound Mountain to suffer heavy losses. But thankfully, none of these villains have escaped. Let's work together to capture this one quickly." Huanhuan's face paled as she observed the situation. If Elder Jiang joined the fray, the enemy would have 2 life mystique stage experts on their side. "Little Mink, can you handle this?" Lin Dong's voice was cold as he glanced at Little Mink, who had a sinister smile on his face. "It'll be tricky, but not impossible. However, it seems we can't let a single one of them leave today." Little Mink's smile widened, his beautiful, almost demonic face showing a flash of bloodthirst. Though his strength had only recovered to the great completion of the life mystique stage, his foundation far exceeded that of the 2 before him. Even against 2 opponents, he was confident of his chances. "Of course we can't let them go." Lin Dong's eyes glinted with ferocity. He was not one to show mercy, and allowing any of these enemies to escape would only create future trouble. Such arrogance. Elder Jiang sneered. He was also at the great completion of the life mystique stage, and with the help of the golden ghost owl, he didn't believe Little Mink could pose much of a threat. "Shen Yun, Xia Yin, take care of them." Rest assured, Uncle Jiang, Shen Yun and Xia Yin, who were facing off against Lin Dong and Xiao Yin, responded with sinister smiles, their eyes filled with murderous intent. "Can you handle one of them?" Lin Dong asked Xiao Yin, his tone calm. "No problem." Xiao Yin grinned, his massive body emitting faint tiger roars. Though Xiao Yin was only at the 8th Nirvana stage, with the bloodline of the celestial demon tiger, his combat strength was enough to rival a 9th Nirvana stage expert. He had already torn another general of demonic Sound Mountain in half earlier. In that case, Lin Dong smiled slightly, his eyes suddenly turning cold. A violent surge of primordial energy erupted from his body like a storm, spreading wildly across the sky. "Let's begin." With those 4 words, the tension in the air exploded, signaling the start of a fierce battle.